Dr. Jill Granite, veterinarian extraordinaire. Thrilled to have you.
You have to stop. The worst thing we do is get an impulse puppy and we grab based on looks. Okay. There's a ton of cute puppies out there, but they certainly don't all fit into our lifestyle. So you really have to step back and take a look at what is our lifestyle? Are we around? Do I have kids? Am I active? And so you have to take all of this into consideration before you pick one, because it really will make a difference if this is a successful introduction or an absolute nightmare for your family, which is what we want to avoid. There are millions. I think we're at about over 8 million pets in shelters right now, dogs and cats in just the United States. So there's millions of unwanted pets out there. And so the ideal thing would say, yes, everybody goes and rescues. And that would be amazing if we can do that. So I always urge people, yes, look into rescues. But again, it can't be an impulse. You can't say, I want a dog and go to a shelter and grab a dog that day. That's not really how it works. Because again, you have to really understand what you're getting into. Is it an older dog? What is its history? We don't know. Are you a good dog trainer? If it's your first dog, then maybe picking an adult dog out of the shelter might be a little daunting. I mean, yes, I love rescues. I love that story, but I think about it in my terms too. I have a purebred golden retriever. So although I love rescue stories, I thought about when I was ready for a dog, okay, I'm a full-time working mother of 4 kids. I need a dog that's going to need very little training, and I need a dog that I know I can trust around 4 kids is not going to bite them, even if I do a terrible job of training it. So we end up with the golden retriever, the old trustworthy golden retriever. And if you end up going with a bred dog, there's nothing wrong with it, but again, you don't want to impulse. You don't want to go on Craigslist that day and grab a dog from a terrible breeder. You want to do your research. You want to find someone who's going to put the time in and work with the breed. Obviously, you're going to pay a lot more when you get a bred dog. Yeah. But sometimes those personalities fit, not so. It's just really about what you think is going to fit for you.
You know what's interesting though about this whole don't make an impulse purchase? I'm going back here. I'm just.
Well, we're not talking about me specifically.
I'm going back here in time. I don't know.
Hoping you wouldn't call me out.
I was like, that's an interesting theory there about these impulse purchases. But
that's so funny that you're saying this, because last night I said she's going to call me out. Not only about dogs, but kids and everything else I'm impulsive
just
with.
What we're laughing about here is we went to Route 22 in New Jersey. Was it Shake-a-Paw? Shake-a-Paw, like just something to do one day. Right. And we went to visit these dogs, and I found this tiny little dog that was the sweetest thing, and was just playing with him. And then you found Sierra, which was a husky, really beautiful. And I hear you in my head saying, my parents are going to kill me. My parents are going to kill me. And I said, well, mine will too. I gave mine back, and you did as well for the moment. And then I go away for the weekend, come back to your house, and you're like, look what I did. But
it's one of those do what I say, not what I do type of situation.
Yes. But
obviously, everybody loves the idea that poodles don't really shed, so they're more hypoallergenic. The non-shedders or the less shedders have a lot less dander that's flying through to increase the allergies. So it does help most of the time in that regard if you get the appropriate generation of bred doodle. But they really are taking over the world. I'd say 80% of the new puppies we see are some sort of doodle cross.
That's wild.
And it is pretty crazy. And the issue with this is that this has become such a boom that now the breeding has gone down because we're just trying to pump out these doodles. So we're seeing a lot of health problems in these doodles. Allergies in the dogs themselves being in the most common. So it's funny, we choose them because people are allergic, and we end up with these dogs that are severely allergic to everything.
So this could really go south in a lot of ways, which is why you're encouraging the research. Yeah, right. Do your research.
I would absolutely ask word of mouth. People have very strong opinions about their veterinarian, just as they do with people with their pediatricians and their kids. You either love them or you hate them. So you got to ask around. You got to find who people like. It's about their bedside manner. There's a lot of good doctors out there, but if they can't talk to you, then it's not the right fit for most people. So you just have to have a comfortable rapport with them, somebody that you feel comfortable that they're taking care of your pet to the best of their ability, and that you feel comfortable taking their advice. What you can expect if you get an 8-week-old puppy is you're going to see your veterinarian about 3 times as puppies. And we're talking about healthy puppies. The sick stuff, obviously, that's on its own. 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks for vaccines. Most puppies are born with their mom's antibodies circulating, and they start losing them about 8 weeks of age. So we try to catch them at times when they're losing their mom's antibodies. So when we vaccinate them, it stimulates them to make their own antibodies for protection. In those appointments, we're talking about spaying and neutering, which as a veterinarian, I absolutely support. It's our social responsibility to help prevent overpopulation. So that's the main reason why we do it. But what we have learned as veterinarians is that to spay and neuter, we're waiting a little bit later. So we're waiting until they're full grown at this point to spay and neuter. So closer to 1 year of age as opposed to those puppies. When we do it too young, we've realized that we're causing more health issues. And so, research shows waiting is better. So
to chip or not to chip, like my neighbor next door, they didn't
always chip.
Always chip.
It's a little size of a grain of rice that goes right under the skin, but if for some reason they get out and they end up, somebody picks them up and takes them to a shelter or a veterinary practice, they scan them and boom, there's your phone number right there. They call you and say, I have your dog, and the issue's solved, as opposed to searching the streets, which is what I used to do.
Okay. And then the fence, I mean, is it cruel? Is it the way to go? What are you thinking there?
You need some sort of containment. So if you don't have an actual fence, I have no issues with electric fence as long as there's some training that's associated, so we're not just letting them fly through and get zapped. They have to learn what the beeps mean. They have to learn how to keep their distance. Okay. It's amazing how well they do work, though. So, I mean, if I didn't have a fenced-in yard, I'd have one.
So, table scraps, good, bad idea?
Bad idea.
Oh, all right. Well, let's take care of that. And what about chocolate?
Training them to start begging and to get fat. I mean, we have such, just as
is there an obesity crisis in the animal population as well?
Massive obesity crisis. As a matter of fact, my dog's actually a little chubby now too, so I shouldn't judge. But I would normally walk my dog and people would start criticizing, oh, your dog's too skinny. And I said, no, you guys, everybody is just so acclimated to these fat dogs that now we think that's the norm. Yeah. Whereas they don't, they start thinking you're starving your dog if it's a nice lean dog.
What about the chocolate scenario though? Is that as lethal as I've heard before? Chocolate can kill a dog?
So it depends on the type of chocolate. Milk chocolate has less of the chemical in it than dark or baker's chocolate. That almost always kills dogs. But the light chocolate, they might just get diarrhea or, nervousness or anxiety.
Sure.
Having a massive caffeine overload in the mild situation. But in the severe chocolates, the dark chocolates, the baker's chocolate, those dogs are having seizures and dying.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of seizures and dying, I'm sure that as does obesity, like heat stroke and things like that apply to dogs as well. Keep them hydrated, keep them cool. Here we are, summer in Jersey, super hot, California, always hot. What's an appropriate amount of time for a dog to be outside in hot weather?
It's just about exercising morning and night. I mean, it is too hot and that ground gets so hot. So when it's 90 degrees, that pavement is 120 degrees and their pads are burning off. And the same within the car, it's 80 degrees outside, but when you have the window rolled down just a little bit, it gets 100 degrees in there very quickly.
Ugh.
So, it's the same as if you put a baby in there. You don't lock a baby in a car, you don't lock a dog in the car.
Thank you for doing this. I love you. Thanks so much. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.